Welcome to the Across the Pond Sports Network's WNBA podcast, Across the Pond Liberty. I'm Stacia,
And I'm Kirstin.
and we are not sad. We are disappointed and frustrated and heartbroken. Not
Yeah.
because the season is over and we lost to the Aces, because the Aces are an excellent team and will go down in history as this group is one of the greatest. I mean, they should. They had three number one draft picks all in a row. But just because should have forced a game five. So
Yeah.
that's disappointed, frustrated, heartbroken. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
It's just like you say, it's not about losing necessarily and not being the champions and everything because as Kelsey Plum put it very well, it takes more than one season to make a quote super team. And she's right. And to have made it this far in itself is a huge achievement. But it's the fact that we know that should have pushed to game 5. We know that that specific game, we had more on us, and it just didn't go our way, and it's just disappointment to see the way that the game turned out. Again, Ace's incredible team, and for them to have performed that well, considering they were missing 2 starters and Candace Parker on top of that, like, creds to them. Creds to them, they deserved it, but disappointed nonetheless.
yeah, this definite disappointment. Definite disappointment, especially in front of such an amazing crowd. We are gonna do positive. Show some. I didn't even know where I'm going with this. We are gonna say positive things because Liberty did not go down without a fight, winning Game 3 by 14 points and showing, as I've always said, that sometimes you just need to punch people in the mouth. Um, Not literally, but and kind of just keep going. And it was great to see the Liberty win a game in the finals, which they had not done since 1999, and one of us was alive then. So that just says a lot. Just one of us was alive when that happened. Um, so you don't win a finals game since like last century. So they won a finals game, and they came out letting everybody know that they were in it. And I think it was nice. Can't even say it was nice. It was great to see just the fight that we've seen this whole year, and to hold the Aces to 73 points defensively was amazing. And having Stewie guard Chelsea Gray, just to to have a 7 foot wingspan in her face, so she those fadeaway jumpers that she made last year in the finals to win Finals MVP, is going to be very difficult for her. So I think that Sandy had such a great defensive game plan, and you said that because I told you I was like, I'm not going to watch this live. I'm just going to wait for you to text me because I watched the first two live, and I'm not superstitious at all, obviously. And I'm just gonna wait and I'll watch it just to see if that worked, and it did work for game three. Um, and you told me about how good the defense was, and it really was. What an excellent defensive game in game three.
Yeah. And my favorite stat from that game is our blocks. So we had 8 blocks in that game, which insane. That's great. To Vegas having 0 blocks. So I think that in itself that speaks for just how great our defense was. It was a really great game, and it was such a great atmosphere as well. We've gone from having these two first games, which were in Vegas, to then having this game 3 in New York. We had the home court advantage, and well, our backs were against the wall. All we could do is stop it and win, because if we didn't, we were that was the season done. So with our backs against the wall, we came out fighting. We had a really great game, and this was one of those really fun games where it's super competitive for the whole game. We won quarter one, we won quarter two, we drew quarter three, we won by 8 points, which is great because we know how important those third quarters are. And fourth quarter, we also won. So all in all, it was a really great game. I mean, Vegas didn't win any of the quarters, which is such a turnaround from the past 2 games. And just a great game. People really stood up. Like what we spoke about last episode was that there are certain players. that have been performing and certain players that have been really quiet, and we found Vandersloot, 12 points, 6 assists. We had Lainey getting some points in. We had Stewie back, double double for her, and Jonquil performing as well as she has been these whole final series. So yeah, it was a really great game, and it just looked a lot more like that kind of fluid New York basketball that we wanted, and just to come away with it being a 14-point win towards the end of the game was just it was great. A really great energy and great that we pushed for that game 4.
Yeah. And you said fluid. They had 28 assists. This is the only the second time in the whole playoffs that they hit their average for season assists per game. Because there was one game against Connecticut where they got up, we were up like 20 points in that first quarter, where it was 26 assists. But they have had trouble hitting 24, which was the season average, right around the season average. So 28 assists was great. When your starters put up 80 points, I and and most of them, I mean, Sabrina had 9, so she didn't get to double figures. When most of your starters hit, double figures and they have 80 points, it's a great turnaround. And then Vegas, who averages 93, 94 points, 20 below their average. Great job defensively, very smart. And we have said this numerous times to open the upper bowl. Guess what? The upper bowl was
Mhm.
open, so more fans got to enjoy it. And since someone comparing Barclays in 2021, where there's barely anybody in the stands, like an Instagram nice little reel, and how loud and active the fans were. Not just all of the celebrities we've talked about, but when you have Little Kim performing at halftime with Ellie, which we're going to get to more on, the best mascot in the W, with Ellie, this is what New York deserved. They deserved a win, and they got it. Um, and it felt like the libs were back, um, and just made me happy with a Sunday afternoon game competing against NFL football to get everybody excited again for the game that we just had last night.
Yeah. Yeah. It was great. Great to push for that. And again, like we said, it's just that fluidity. And on fast break points, we had 12 fast break points to Vegas's 2, which again just shows fast game. Our chemistry was there, our assists were there, our defense, everything just coming together to bring us that win. Yeah, but unfortunately that did not carry on into game 4. So, yeah.
It's
That's why
nuts.
we're sad.
That's why we're sad. So Liberty start off game 4 and close out the first quarter like on an excellent run and are up 23-13. Great. Good to go. Second quarter, you're up by 10. It's Vegas. They had 8 turnovers in that first quarter. That was kind of I think that was expected because Chelsea wasn't running it. Asia would get rebounds and bring it up, which Rebecca and Ryan talked about how her bringing it up was easy because John Quell's not going to guard her in the full court to start the offense. And then, it's by committee, all the point guard duties, which they figured out how to kind of keep the ball in check and then outscore us by 1. And so halftime still up by 9, 39-30. Looking good. The Liberty hadn't blown a double-digit lead that had happened in the first half of this whole year, but this is the year for things. They hadn't lost back-to-back games this whole year either until the finals. And then two things, talked about this before we recorded, two things that we have said a lot when it comes to leads or making sure that you keep yourselves in check. Kirstin has always said how important the third quarter is, and I have always said that when you have your foot on their necks, you have to keep it there, which did not happen at all in the third quarter. And then Vegas gets up by 2 going into the fourth, and momentum is shifted, and everything just looked lost in that third quarter. That's about the best way to say it. Just looked lost and nothing was working.
Yeah. It was it was just painful. We had that good first half, but the first quarter, even at that, we were on that great run coming to the second quarter, and we kind of gave them a bit of room to back and forth with us. And I was like, we need to shut that down. If you're gonna start off like that, you need to maintain it. You need to shut it down. Don't let them back and forth. But it was okay, and yeah, coming into that third, they just absolutely killed us. They were looking a lot more fluid than we were. They were defensively really shaking us up, and we just didn't seem to be making great decisions. We had a lot of open shots in the game where players were hesitating, or we were missing wide open layups, or we weren't scoring our free throws. It was such basic things. It wasn't necessarily that we were running wild plays and it was going crazy, and it was basic things that we weren't doing right that started making the game look sloppy. Vegas were playing sloppy as well, and that's the thing that is most frustrating, is that Vegas also did not have a good game, but we let these very, very simple things like shot decisions, sensible passing. There's a lot of these like overhead passes, and I was like, no, like you're in such a close game, you do not make a pass like that over these like near 6 foot whatever players, because they're gonna tip it, and they did, and they got plenty of steals in the game, just not 7 steals for the Aces. They just killed us. Um, and specifically speaking, like what we said in the last episode is that there are some players that really need to step up, whilst the other players were maintaining their great performance. For example, John Quell, great performance all throughout the playoffs, and then this game seems to be a bit of a converse. She had a great game in terms of rebounds and blocks. She had 3 blocks, 11 rebounds, but only 6 points, coming off of her 29 points, I believe it was, for 27 points for the previous game. It's just frustrating that conversely now, for example, she wasn't performing great. We had Sui, she had her double double, but then Vandersloot was suddenly the highest scorer for the team in that game, which is it's frustrating. You know, we needed consistency, and then people who needed to step up stepped up, but they stepped up in other ways, and they didn't necessarily help out in other ways. So just very frustrating that y- it just didn't seem to be very consistent. It wasn't very reflective of the way that we've played throughout the season. The stats kind of speak for themselves. The people who performed differently in that game, it's just not what we really expected, and not what we needed for the game. We needed some great defense. We needed some more shots from our bigs. We needed more easy points in the paint, and it didn't work out like that.
Well, and I can say that we said before the series started that rebounding was going to be a huge factor, and the first 2 games it was, and then we barely out rebounded in the third. We out rebounded in this game by 1, but when we had beaten them early in the year, the rebounds were significantly higher. So it didn't really come down to rebounding because when it was even, it was even. But I think it was just timely decisions, and then our we were such a good shooting team this year, and then just shot horribly in the finals. And the best example I have of that is unguarded. The second shot, I believe that everybody learns. You first shot you learn layup. Second shot free throws. And so in the finals, the Liberty were 41 of 63 from the free throw line, which is 65-ish percent. Against Connecticut, we actually shot less free throws, and it's a more physical team, but made more. We were 53 of 60 for over 88%. And for the year, the team was 78.5% from the free throw line. So that is like a little over 1 free throw more made, and 8 of 12 in this game. You talked about like little things. 3 wide open layups that were missed. There's 6 points. Like wide open layups. 4 free throws. Say make 2, and my love of Steph Dolson, she's 86% ish for her career and missed 2. And then another thing is she was an inch away from having a 2 pointer be a 3 pointer, and same thing with Benijah. It was just an inch away, and so literally make 2 more free throws, 2 more points on the 3 pointers, and then 3 wide open layups, and that's 10 points. And then and we're going back to Vegas. And there's a million little things, and we had a bunch of balls that were like kind of bouncing around that or in and outs that didn't go in, and Vegas had more that were falling. And I feel like that was just I don't it's weird to say because it's so much more than just, like, you shooting and it going in. They had such even better chemistry, even with the bench, and more confident. Sid Colson came in, had 2 points, and said very funny things after the game because it's Sid Colson. Kayla George going 3 for 10 from 3 when they only made 5 the whole game, and Jackie made 2. There were so many things that were just different because Kayla George had some really horrendous looking threes and still kept shooting, and then made 2 in the 3rd quarter during that run that were huge because she was like, "Well, I'm gonna keep shooting," you know? And I believe Holly said that Kayla had been playing her quote was that she'd been playing professionally for 17 years, so she's just gonna keep doing her, and she did. But besides Asia, I am just gonna go and say that the MVP of this game for the Aces is Alicia Clark, and loved her when she was on the Storm because she was I think she's top 25 all time in women's college basketball for scoring, and came into the W and found out how to be a mainstay on a team, which was being a defender, and that's what she did for Seattle. And she can score, but she had 4 offensive rebounds, and I think they scored on 3 of them on her offensive rebounds. One was a putback, and the other one they got a 3 on, I believe. So just her 4 offensive rebounds were huge, and she guarded Stewie, and Stewie went 3 for 17, and she guarded her a decent amount of the time. And when you've played with someone for years in Seattle, she kind of like knows what to do. Um, and she's just a consummate professional. And when she went to Washington after the Seattle team had to split up because of didn't have enough money to keep everybody, I thought that that was going to be great. And then everybody got hurt in Washington. Story of Washington's years, the past 4 years after their championship. And so when she got in Vegas, I think that was one of their better gets in the off season because I mean look at how that paid dividends now. So I'm always going to be a fan of Alicia Clark, and defensively, we only scored 69 points. So good job on the Aces for being a little bit better defensively. But it's just tough because it's just tough. But and also kudos for the Liberty for not folding because you're down in that last 2 minutes and made it a game and had an opportunity to win it at the end. So
Yeah.
it's
No,
it's
it's
disappointing. I said aces and five. I wish I would have been. I mean, I didn't want to be right on aces and five, but I wish it would have gone five. We needed a five. We need a 5 game series. We need a 5 game
yeah,
series. It's been 2019. We've had a 5 game series. We need another one just to keep the excitement going. But oh,
yeah. Ugh, I
disappointment.
know. And on that point, I mean, I think what it comes down to is just the shots weren't going in. There was a lot of the time, I think we didn't let the ball move around enough. So we were bringing the ball up, we were making the first pass or the second pass. And within those first two kind of plays, we were attacking and Stewie was squaring up to players. And I know it's Stewie's strength where she squares up to players, she turns her back, she does her little shimmy, and she fades away and she shoots and she scores, but it wasn't working this time, and I feel there was a lot of opportunities in the game where that was used as, like, the primary offense compared to, "Okay, move the ball more, use the clock more, create space," because we had a few really nice, but there was one really nice play, I think it was in the 3rd quarter, where everybody touched the ball and more, and then we passed it in to JJ, and she bricked a very close range shot, and I was like, it was just the story of the game. It was just bricking shots, not very good decision making. There was like Kayla Thornton for the half, she had a wide open layup, missed it, and it's that sort of play where had you scored it, it wouldn't have changed the offense afterwards because it's the end of the quarter. Had you scored that, we would have been up. Had we scored the free throws, we would have been up. Had we had those twos converted to threes, we would have been up. And for example, Vandersloot, I was talking to Stacia about this before the podcast, and I have had this frustration with her all season. This game speaks for the fact that she can shoot. She can absolutely shoot. She was 4 from 8 from the 3-point line, but she's not been shooting enough during the season. And as the lead point guard, I think she needs to be a lot more aggressive attacking the basket because she had a nice few shots today in the game last night where she made herself open or she went up against a player and she had a nice finish and she's capable of it. but she has a lot of times where she drives to the basket and she just stops and she's open and she should shoot, but she turns around and she passes it out or she tries to make an extra play out of it when sometimes she just needs to be like, "This is me. I'm going to the basket. I'm capable of it. I'm gonna score it." It just seems like she's been really in her head about it, and I just kept seeing that in the game. Despite her having 19 points, which is one of the highest she's had this season, there were still so many more opportunities where she was open, and I was like, "Ah, just finish that next shot." Um, and yeah, it's just little things like our rebounds, maybe not necessarily the biggest thing in this game, but any possession is something that can change the score. There was a lot of times where we let the aces get multiple rebounds in the same play because we weren't grabbing the ball and pulling it down, we were tipping it to the other team. It's like little things like that that give the other team opportunity to then get the ball and score again, and that's exactly what happened. So,
Well,
yeah.
and then Asia got a couple fouls in the first half, and John only had 8 shots, and it's not like she was, putting up a bunch of threes. She only took 1 3, but a little more intentional with JJ going at Asia and making someone come over to do that, to help. I think there was everything was just off this finals. That's about the best we can go. Is everything was just off, and man, and we talked about how we believed our bench was deeper than the aces, and I think that's just because Becky didn't play the bench from what we saw today. Um, what we saw yesterday, and during this, just that was one of the more impressive things. You've lost 3 starters at different times during the year with Candace, Chelsea, and Kia, and Kayla George comes in and does well. Alicia Clark is just going to do whatever the team needs. So good job. Even Sid getting a few minutes scoring. It, kudos to the Aces. It hurts to
Yeah.
say it so much. So we
Yeah.
are gonna turn our attention to something though that is in the W that I feel we want to talk about, and it kind of goes back to the Aces. Becky Hammond is the highest paid coach in the W, which obviously is well deserved, going back to back, something that hasn't been done in 21 years. But the Phoenix Mercury have hired Orlando Magic assistant Nate Tibbetts to be their new head coach, and he, without any previous experience coaching women, is now going to be the highest WNBA head coach there is. And this is always the argument that women don't have any experience coaching men, but they have experience coaching women about why they don't get jobs. And so he's coming in here, and this is the first time in years that the Mercury has not made the playoffs, and now he's automatically the highest paid coach. So I am not happy with this, but I'm also very curious to see what is going to happen and did what happened in the interview and who does this man know. And I do not know anything about him. I will say that out there. Don't know anything about him. So this is me coming in negatively about this man, but I am curious to see what's going to happen, especially because there's turmoil going on in Phoenix. And this is, Tarazi's career is ending. BG has been back for a full year. All the stuff with Skylar going and coming into a last place team and getting this highest paid job. So this is going to be an interesting 2024, to say the least, with him coming in here. And we just talked about diversity with Teresa Weatherspoon, Teaspoon getting the job in Chicago. And it's nice to have that diversity. And now it's no, it's not as much with this hire, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and see what happens. But I do not like this at all.
No, I think you're right. We can give the benefit of the doubt, but I think it's incredibly bold for Phoenix to come on out and suddenly acquire this coach, pay them more than Becky Hammond, who Becky Hammond has the receipts to prove that she should be paying that much. She should be getting paid that much. This coach again, I also don't know much about him. I can say Orlando Magic assistant coach. I've not really heard the Orlando Magic making very many waves in the NBA. I don't think they've been super successful. So, you know, I don't see where this guy's receipts are coming from. I don't know why he's getting paid so much. I'm not sure, maybe they have been performing well and I'm just oblivious to it, but from what I understand. Um and I just think like your point as well, like women's basketball is so different to men's basketball. It's just so much more tactical. There you can't just have, okay, this is our guy that's gonna run and dunk on everyone, and it's just gonna go back and forth possessions like that. It's so tactical and it's a full team based sport. Um and I think you really need the experience coaching women's basketball to be successful as a coach. So very bold from Phoenix, and very bold from Phoenix after already having quite a rough season, a lot of news going about them, not super happy with coaching staff, etc. So I think they definitely needed to invest a lot of money in their coach for sure, but
I
interesting way
mean,
to go about it.
they did just get a, investment for a brand new, practice facility, I believe.
Mhm.
They just have, like, all the money that's going into that, so that's good considering that 2 years ago, um, where they play their home games because they play with the Suns, that they had, like, Disney on Ice and a concert, so they had to play at Grand Canyon University for a playoff game. I believe against Liberty that they won by 1 point the year that they made it to go see, when they lost to Chicago in the final, and then they had another game, like, a week later, so it was like Disney on Ice and a concert, so, you know, bang up job right now, Phoenix. We'll see what
Yeah.
happens. I mean, they don't have Sandy anymore, so I guess you gotta pay somebody a lot of money to come in there to do something because, Sandy went to New York. Um, so there's that. So there's that. Uh, yeah, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah,
We'll
we'll
see,
see.
we'll see what
We'll see.
happens. Yeah, we'll see. But before we go to our highlights of the year, I'm gonna just throw out again about how our mascot is. There's one thing that New York is the best at. We've got the best mascot. When Cardi B tweets tweets out that Ellie's just killing it pretty much, doing the bongos dance after the game 3 win, and just thinks that Ellie's doing it better. And then the New York Times have an article that had the words in it said something like, "Have you ever seen an elephant twerk?" Because that's what Ellie does. That's what Ellie does. So, and dresses like Little Kim at the halftime show. These are all real things that go on with the mascot
She's
with
been
Ellie.
putting in the work.
Oh gosh, it's so great. I
Yeah.
This is one of those where I don't want, like, the veil lifted because I wanna meet whoever is in that mascot costume, but I also am just like, I want you to keep your anonymity because I just love that it's just
Yeah.
elephant with trunk and tail, just killing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But look at the Liberty. We're talking about their mascot and how great she is in front of, 17,000 people dancing away when 3 years ago they were 2-20 in the bubble.
Mhm. Yeah.
3
It's
years ago,
super it's
seasons
also
ago, yeah.
crazy just, like, how quickly it can all switch like that. So, equally this ties in with what we're saying about this new Phoenix coach, like that, it could change. So,
They
benefit
they
of the
will
doubt.
have they'll have they'll have a top pick. Right now they are second. They have the if it goes by percentages, if the percentages hold out, they have the second pick in this year's draft. So it's gonna be interesting when the lottery comes out to see who gets the first pick. Because if Indiana gets the first pick and Caitlin Clark declares, oh gosh, are we gonna have see how good Indiana will be soon? But let's say Phoenix wins it and Caitlin declares, and then if they got Caitlin Clark and Phoenix, like there's
Yeah.
so many things that could be just real interesting with all of this. But yeah, we'll see. This next year is going to be interesting on shakeups, and we also talked before we recorded about free agency. I'm
Mhm.
just only going to mention one free agent, besides the fact that Stewie and John Quell aren't under contract, I believe, which we don't think they're going anywhere. They only had like the 1 years, but and this is ever since the first episode, is always going to be a Natasha Cloud love fest. So
Oh,
we
yeah.
want to know where he's going to go. That is the question. I have ideas if she doesn't stay in Washington, and I'm going to keep them to myself. But Kirsten knows what they are,
Yeah.
um, because yeah, we want to see where Natasha Cloud's going to go.
Yeah.
That's our biggest one. Also, James and Michelle talked in the WNBA podcast. We're interested to see where Skylar's gonna go because she's not staying in Phoenix. She's
Yeah.
not staying in Phoenix.
Definitely not.
So, definitely not. So these are all the things that, uh, are
Yeah,
gonna
you
be
know,
interesting next year.
as much as, we can consider next year and um, think about how this season went and how well we ended up doing, you still need to save some space for the consideration that everything can change so quickly. There's so many players who are going into free agency. The draft is looking pretty good this year, especially if a lot of the players declare. So it's gonna be it can
It's gonna
there's
be fun.
potential that this year is gonna really, really change
Yeah.
in the off season. So
If
so
Connecticut, if they had Bree Jones this year, it could have been a different story because they were good, and Bree Jones was hurt, and they adapted and did well. That's gonna be the one to look at next year, because they're still loaded. They're still loaded. So many teams that could do things, and like I said, it can change a lot in a year. But so before we get into our favorite Liberty moments from this year, this is the question: will the Aces three-peat?
no,
I'm gonna agree. I'm just gonna say no.
no.
Which
It was too close. This year for them to win the championship again, it was already too close. Give New York another year, give other teams another year in their draft picks. No, they don't.
I I am also I'm gonna oh gosh, I do not like myself right now for what I'm gonna do. They only lost one game in the playoffs, Kirsten, and you're
Yeah.
saying it was too
I
close?
know.
They only lost one game in the
I
playoffs.
know, I know.
So it doesn't feel very close just to throw
But
that out there.
it's
But
it's more it's I don't know. I think things are changing. I think they had a great playoff run. They had a great I think our matchup doesn't speak for it because we already say we did not have a good final round. Like that finals was not good. That was not how we play. And you can make that excuse, Aces played really well and maybe that's the reason we didn't play well. But looking at the way
no,
we played them in the
nothing. No,
season,
we just play well. No, no,
yeah, exactly.
no,
Exactly.
no.
So there you
They
go. But
no.
looking at the way we played them in the season, man, give us another year, another season to warm up. I don't see it. I don't see it. And I think it's the same for a lot of other teams. I just think give them more time, get used to it. We had some very close games. We had some really competitive teams. Add on the draft picks, add on everything else that's going on in the league, people moving around. Like, I don't see it. I think next year, as competitive as this year was, I mean, we predicted it. We started a Liberty and an Aces podcast because we were like, they're probably going to the finals this year. Next year, I don't think it's going to be as clear cut. I don't think it's going to be, okay, Aces, Liberty. I think there's probably going to be three, four teams who we're going to be a bit like, okay, they're one to watch. We're yet to see
If
what happens in the off season, but I just don't think it's going to be as clear cut next year.
I am gonna just make a very interesting pick. I'm just gonna say that Indiana's gonna be back in the playoffs next year. That's about the only pick I'm gonna make
Mhm.
for interesting things that happen next year. Who knows what could happen with Dallas if they got a 3-point shooter, if they got another a 3-point threat besides Enrique. That because they finally won a series after years, and we're close to giving Vegas like their second loss or their first loss in the playoffs at that time. So it'd be interesting, and who knows? You never know what's going to happen with injuries or any kind of thing like that. But this is a good year, and the fact that we got to have a podcast every week and made it to the finals is also awesome. So thanks, Libs, for helping us out with that. But here we go. Highlights of the year. I've got a few highlights, and I want to know if your favorite highlights of the year for the Liberty. I want to know if we're gonna agree on these or not.
I will go out and say favorite highlights of the year. That Commissioner's Cup for a start, but the games in the season leading up to Commissioner's Cup, see that week where we played Vegas like twice in the regular season and then we had the Commissioner's Cup. That week 2 week span, highlight. That was great. It was such a high. We bet Vegas, and then we bet them in the Commissioner's Cup, and we didn't just like we had some really great games, some really great basketball. That was like
Well,
that's New
from
York Liberty right there.
after we lost to Dallas, after the All-Star break,
Mhm.
through August, we were the best team in the league by far. I
Oh,
mean, it
yeah.
could have been because Vegas had 13 games in August, but JJ was back and everybody was firing. That was just a
Yeah.
month of, like, we were as happy as could be on this podcast. We're like, "This is
Yeah.
great. This is
Yeah.
great. Yay." Yeah. That was a good week.
Yeah. I'd
Alright.
have to say that, and I would also have to say Stewie's first home game where she comes in, drops 40, like, I think that speaks for itself. Sorry,
45.
45,
Don't short
but, you
her.
know,
Yeah.
I know, I shouldn't cut her short, but
Yeah.
over 40 points, like, in her first home game, second game of the season, that was just such a great way to just kick off, be like, "Damn, that she's her. She's her."
It was her first win as a member of the Liberty because they lost to Washington,
Yep.
first win playing in your home state for your home state team. It's pretty great. Alright. You got another one? I've got I've got a couple.
Mm, other one, I'm gonna be really biased here, and you know what? I'm gonna throw 2 more in. One of them,
Ooh,
you're
it's
probably
just
fully
being greedy.
expecting.
Just being super greedy right now.
I know, I
Okay.
know. Um, it's just getting to watch Marine Johannes play. I just love I just love Marine Johannes, like, I can't just watching her play full stop. I know she's not been the most consistent, but when she has those games, like that game 1, and, like, she gets shout outs from LeBron James and everything, like, oh, just it's like art. It's just so lovely to watch. But the biggest thing for me coming out of this season that I didn't expect, and that's my bad for not expecting it, but bit Nigel Laney. Just watching her progression as the season's gone on, how reliable and consistent she's been, I was so caught up in the All Stars and all their new signings that we had that I didn't really give much thought coming into the season for Bitnija, and wow, wow,
Yep.
just she is she's grown up there on probably top 2 favorite player in the team, and I just blindsided me. I wasn't expecting to leave the season thinking that. So I'd have to say, just watching Bitnija, getting to know her, seeing like the Liberty Unlocked, all that sort of stuff, and changing my perspective. You know, I love an offensive player, but damn, is it fun to watch someone who's amazing at defense? Like defense is just it gets you hyped in a different kind of way. So watching Benija has really just wowed me this season.
The defense, thus our love for Natasha Cloud. Um, just the intensity. Yep. So here we go. So you kind of hit on some of my favorites, and that is just kind of like game wise. Sabrina breaking the record, Stewie getting the first MVP award for the New York Liberty, which being an OG team is amazing. Um, and I will say this: I still believe that Stewie was the MVP during the regular season by a hair or two. Now in the playoffs, 100% it's Asia. Like I'm not gonna not say that.
Mhm.
Um, the Commissioner's Cup, JJ coming back full swing and getting MVP in that was great because it just kind of like put a stamp on it because she was struggling. And then, having that month that she did was great. But game wise, that comeback against Connecticut was hilarious uh, um, in the regular season. Down 19. I also just think it was fun because I sent you the text. I'm just like, this is going to be so much fun when she watches this. Don't look at the score, just watch the game first. Um, that was just fun. They didn't have, like, say quit because they'd blown a lead like that against Chicago earlier and then, blowing this one. So it's nice to see a team, like, fight to come back because I think as Sandy said, you learn a lot from, like, doing that or from, like, the losses, but the comebacks when you actually have to, like, struggle and fight. So that's the kind of grittiness I wanna see moving forward. And then a highlight for me kinda goes to Benija and Stewie and Sandy when I got to ask Benija a question in the press conference, and she said that her mom was better in her prime, would beat Benija one on one. Her Benija's mom would beat her, and then Sandy said, "My mom would beat me," and then Stewie said, "No, my mom sucks." Like, I literally got Stewie to say, "My mom sucks," in a press conference, talking about how Stewie was in basketball. But, I mean, you can't really beat that for a highlight, and then talking to him, of course, I got
Yeah,
to talk to Steph and other people that were there, but, I mean, that's a different highlight that I'm lucky to have since I'm in the States,
yeah,
but, you know, yeah. So
yeah,
that was awesome for me. That Connecticut game was just which
and also,
I
like,
shouldn't say because I feel like Connecticut if anyone from Connecticut listens to that, they wanna they may wanna smack me, so yeah.
yeah, that's very true, but even just the game that you got to watch, the Dallas game, that was an incredible game as well, so to see that live in person, man, what a season.
It was I wish I would remember more of that game. I don't remember much of the game. I was just there watching it, just stand on the floor, and Stewie got 40. I was like, "She's scoring a lot." I feel like my friend Marty and my mom knew more what was happening in that game than I did. I'm just watching and then walking over and listening in the huddle and just doing that, but I was like, "I think the game's pretty close, right?" Because I didn't look at the score because it was so fast. It's the least I've been engaged in a game in a long time just because I was kind of, like, not yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's the second
yeah,
WNBA game I've ever gone to, and I'm standing on the floor for it.
yeah,
It's insane. Yeah.
surreal.
That is oh gosh, it was. So, alright. Well, the Libs did a lot of things, and there's 2 things that cannot be taken away from the Libs this year. One is we are the Commissioner's Cup champions, which is the first title that the Libs have won. So, yes, crown ourselves. And
Yeah,
2, Stewie got MVP, which we called in the 2nd episode. Just gonna throw
yeah,
that out there. We called it.
we called it, we
Yeah,
called it.
we called it. Called it. She has a l
Yeah,
she, she has a lovely block. She does that. Other highlights with us is just all my crazy hashtags, dream documentary, Colson Dolson, which Sid Colson has a show with plaisance. I mean, it's
yeah,
actually what it could be, just doesn't rhyme like it would with Steph. Um, Gummy Whitcomb, your
yeah.
gum falls, you put it back in. A lovely block, and then we have slow goes going. It's just good stuff.
Logos going, yeah, we started with that last week. We've got
It's fashion.
our fashion reviews with
Oh,
you
yeah.
know what? I think that should be, like, for future, that should become a segment, fashion
Just
reviews,
fashion just
just
fashion
fashion.
reviews, fashion fits,
We could do,
because
like,
I know I
fashion sh
am
we could do
100% a
pre-game
perfect authority
fits.
of that because I have watched so much yeah, Top
Yeah,
Model,
yeah.
Project Runway, I know all the things, yeah,
Say yes to the
yeah,
dress, even though that's just about wedding dresses, but, fashion.
fashion.
Um, yeah,
Turn to the left, fashion. Turn to the right,
yeah, I
yeah.
think that should be a segment, yeah.
I'm gonna give one thing. If there is any person that can get away with wearing white socks and black shoes, it would be the Finals MVP, Asia Wilson, which she did do. Um,
Yeah, she
'Cause
did.
Candace, no, Kelsey Plum called her out. They call out Steph Dolson. Asia can do it. Holding up her second trophy, telling everybody to take 8 shots before they come to the parade.
Yeah.
Black shoes, white socks. Asia can get away with it. She's earned it.
And not to mention
Uh,
in the
well,
new LeBron
Liberty,
21s.
LeBron 21.
Yeah, they're looking nice.
They are. Oh, you're at Nike more. You know more about the
Yeah,
shoes than I do. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, Liberty did, I believe, what I think most people were expecting them to do, get to the finals. It was going to be a tall task to beat Vegas. Vegas are the champs. They are excellent. They're going to go down in history as one of the best teams ever. This run that they've had, um, but good job on the Libs since February. Having this run, getting New York basketball back to happy after being in a community building 5 years ago, but still looking for that first elusive title. Well, I want to thank everybody from around the world that has listened to us, which we are both very surprised in all the countries that we have seen that have put us in like their like high list to listen. So thank you everybody out there. Um, that's kind of amazing and again surreal that this is something that's out to the world. And also, I'm just going to thank you, despite our massive age difference, because I'm so old and you are so young. It has been a pleasure to talk to you every week, and it's nice to know that I have a friend that lives in Scotland that I can converse with and really just enjoy getting to see every week. So thank you, Kirsten.
Oh, thank you, Stacia. And same goes to you. It's been really great. I feel you have a lot of basketball knowledge and a lot of specifically college knowledge, which has kind of become part of me now. So I feel like I've learned a lot from doing this podcast. So yeah. And it's been really great. Our fans, we've had our up like top 5 in South Africa and Thailand. Like
Yeah,
shout out to South Africa and Thailand.
it's
Um
it's kind of nuts. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and as our, lovely, lovely founder of Across the Pond Sports Networks, good old James has said, we do have the coolest logo or slogo with the Statue of Liberty in between us, because it literally is. So no matter what anybody says, we still have the coolest logo, because that's what it's going to be from
Yeah.
now on. The Across the Pond Liberty, nice little emblem. That's our slogan. It's not a logo,
Yeah.
it's just a slogan. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
for us. Well, for for the last time on this podcast this season, uh, for Across the Pond Liberty. I'm Stacia.
And I'm Kirsten.
See everybody next season.
See you next season.